We've been told that death is permanent. Nothing could be further from the truth. This is something animals naturally understand. Ellie is the founder of The Gentle Barn, an organization that rescues and rehabilitates unwanted animals who in turn help heal humans with similar stories of abuse and neglect. Today, Ellie shares what the animals have taught her about what happens when we leave this world. So Ellie is back with us. And Ellie, today we're talking about something that some people feel uncomfortable with. We're talking about death and what you have learned through the Gentle Barn, because most animals, they don't have the life expectancy that a human has. So I'm sure you've had some situations where you've encountered this, and I know you've learned a lot. So can you share some of those stories with us?
Yes, and I'm so glad you asked, because I think as a human society, we do not talk about death enough. And we don't know how to support one another. And that's something that the cows know so well. They really come together as community and family when there's a loss. Prior to this story, I approached death as something scary and tragic and you want to avoid. But I had an experience where a beautiful cow of ours at the Gentle Barn named Buttercup had a son who was born with underdeveloped lungs. And there was a fire nearby, and the smoke and the soot and the ash kind of rained down on the Gentle Barn. And we tried to protect all of our animals as best we could. But because he had underdeveloped lungs, he got pneumonia. And we tried everything to save his life. But after several weeks, it was clear to everyone, unfortunately, that he was not going to make it. And I was sitting there desperately trying to think of more vets that I could call, trying to think of more healing modalities I could use. I was looking at him and begging him not to leave me. I was resisting. And while I was doing this, his beautiful mother simply stood up, walked over to him, licked his neck, and literally whispered in his ear that she loved him and it was okay to go. And in the most selfless act of unconditional love that I have ever seen, she licked her son until he took his last breath and she walked him home. And I was so surprised at that devotion and that selflessness and that courage that became the way that we walk animals home at the Gentle Barn till the end of time. We teach it to all our staff and our volunteers that should an animal become ill or old or even something tragic happening like an injury or a seizure, that we don't panic, we don't raise our voices, that we clear the room, and that we hold them lovingly in our arms, we talk to them reassuringly, and we walk them home to make Buttercup proud. And she changed the course of the history at the Gentle Barn.
Do you also find that there are things that the animals do collectively together? I mean, that was a beautiful example of what a mother did for her child. But do you find that the animals understand what we call death and, do things a little bit differently when they know that an animal is dying?
I think they understand death and they come together as a community, but they see death differently than how we talk about it. So our beautiful cow Witness was passing away, and I called the vet and he said that he would try to get there as fast as possible. And while we were waiting, she was laying on the ground and she was moaning, and it was clear that she was trying to leave her body. We had about 20, 25 cows at the time, and they all came into the barn and formed a circle around her. And when the circle was fully formed, the matriarch stepped forward, rested her head on the shoulder of Witness, stayed there for several minutes with her eyes closed, clearly thanking her, loving her, and bidding her farewell. And when she was done, she stepped back into the circle, and every single solitary member of that family took a turn one by one to bid their farewell and to pay homage to this beautiful, beautiful cow that was passing away. And once they had all paid their respects, they all went off to eat. And I worked with the vet to help her transition the last steps out of her body. And after dinner, all the cows came back into the barn, and I closed my eyes and I connected with our matriarch. And I said to her, "I'm so sorry for your loss." And she said, "What loss?" And I said, "Well, Witness just passed away." And she said, "You humans just don't get it. There is no such thing as death. Witness didn't leave or go anywhere or die or end. Witness stepped out of her body that was failing her, but she is literally right here, and we could talk to her and be with her whenever we want. And that lesson took about a decade more for it to really sink in. But as an animal communicator, one of my favorite things is to talk to clients who have lost animals. And I talk to those animals that have transitioned. And those animals, time and time and time again, tell me, I didn't leave. I'm right here. This is the song they're singing to me. This is, they're sitting on their bed with books all around them. They're studying. This is the trip they took. They give me proof of what their people are doing, proving that they never leave us, that love never dies, and our connection never ends. It just changes form.